Welcome to Tobago Chronicles, a retrospective look at the exploits and milestones in the history of the Tobago society. Tobago Chronicles documents the life, the experiences, the journey of our significant contributors to development of the Tobago society. Today, we look at the first episode of Tobago Chronicles, which singles out an organization that made an indelible impression on the Tobago society in the era of the mid-1990s. And that organization is none other than the Push Foundation. And I'll leave it just at that for now, because I have with me in studio today the founder, president, CEO, the man himself of Push Foundation, Mr. Andre Phillips. Mr. Phillips, welcome to the Chronicles.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure, Anne-Marie.
Nice. So I know that our viewers would be eager to hear from you, particularly those who would have experienced the Push Foundation in that era. So tell me, who is Andre Phillips?
All right. Well, I am a born and bred Tobagonian from Scarborough.
Right.
And I've lived in this island and in this country for all my years. At this point in time, I have just attained age 60. And I've been with this organization. I helped with Elton Keith to start the Push Foundation in 1995 when I was 35 years old. Elton was a little older than me. He was a prominent businessman operating from Spring Garden, a popular place called CBA Kalamazoo.
Yes.
And I at the time was the manager of the Small Business Development Company in Tobago, part of the management team of the National Agency for Small Business Lending at the time.
Right, yes.
What happened is that I had some perspective based on the different type of experiences I had growing up, from my bishop's days on to my early life in the public service,
Right.
which I started at age 20, and I was working in the Scarborough Library.
Right.
And I interacted with a number of icons, among them A&R Robinson. And they would stop to chat. I would look at the kind of material they would borrow and read out a West India reference. And I had relationships with different people and a perspective on a number of matters. In that year, 1995, I met Elton Keith in a political environment. And he saw my energy and zeal for Tobago, and he felt, well, you need to channel that in some way.
Right.
Why don't we consider forming an NGO from Scarborough, not one that coming out of the communities, but an NGO in Scarborough that looking out for Tobago as a whole.
Right.
And see, Elton, that's a massive exercise. We don't have that kind of focus in Tobago. He said, we can do it because you have networks and I have net worth.
All right. Okay.
Now, he had been a man very much involved in boxing. I used to go to the PSA and watch boxing promotions put on by him, a couple of them. He was also very much involved in agitating for a better sea bridge, and particularly because of the nature of business he did, going back and forth.
Yes.
Yeah. So we got down and we discussed People United to Save Our Heritage as the name.
Before you go into the Push Foundation itself and what it means, give us an idea of what the Tobago society was like back then that would have given rise to the need for an organization such as Push.
All right, so we were very much a village community in Tobago.
Right.
We had certain village traditions and values, and some of them started slipping at that point in time, maybe a few years before we actually founded the organization, but in that period, it was quite noticeable, and the trend needed to be arrested.
Okay.
We were talking, for example, susu. Tobago people in the villages were very strong on the susu concept
Right, yes.
as a means of savings. We were seeing a little change in that area, which
Right, yes.
was not too bad, in that the Unit Trust Corporation had put itself in play as an investment instrument, and Tobagonians were beginning to gravitate to that by the 1990s,
Right, yes.
by the time we were starting in 1995. The Lenhan, which was a very important volunteer type initiative put on by our people, pursued by our people, that was starting to disappear.
That's true, and I know many people built their homes and
Yes,
so on based on Lenhan.
People either built their homes or they
Yeah.
upgraded their homes
Yeah.
using the volunteer help from neighbors and
Right.
villagers.
Yes.
Even in the area of land ownership, Tobagonians were beginning to actually, or they were increasing in a significant way. By 1995, the parting of their ownership with lands to people outside of Tobago.
Oh.
And this was also an area of concern. Then our general civility, the level of respect for our elders was definitely slipping.
Okay.
People were not paying much attention to the elders in the society. They weren't recognizing their contributions. So those kinds of things affected my sensibilities, and it found its way into our mission
Right.
to pursue the progress for Tobago with a focus on sensitization and advocacy
Right.
for the Tobago inhabitants and others in a meaningful and sustainable way,
Okay.
while preserving our good heritage traditions.
Oh, great. So that was the core philosophy and values of the
yes.
PUSH. So tell us, for the viewers, what is PUSH Foundation now?
People united to save our heritage.
Excellent. So I could imagine with an organization such as that, the coming together experience might have been difficult in getting people to wake up to the realities of the situation as you described, and then the need to give back and do something for your community. Tell us about those early years and what it meant for the formation of the organization. In particular, what worked for you, and then maybe what were some of the challenges?
All right, in the first year was a very significant year, and it had different parts. We were founded in July 1995.
Right.
Elton Keat and I established the organization. Elton Keat first put things in place and found himself obtaining a building from which we would operate. He just came one day and he said, Andre, look, 99 Northside Road, this building is where PUSH will operate from.
Right.
So if I had any doubts that there was the need to ramp up the energy.
Business right now, yes.
He said, Andre, I would use my net worth, but you should use your network.
Right.
And let us get this thing going. So my goal was to try and see if we could get some resources, even tables and chairs and typewriter and so on, because we were still in that time.
Yes.
And we got help from Field. I had a chat with Mr. Pantin.
I remember.
And Field, the first people they ever funded in Tobago was PUSH. They gave us donated chairs and tables and a couple other things so that we could furnish our office space.
Right.
Now we came in as volunteers. This is a project, or this was an initiative to increase volunteerism. So we needed buddies, and we built out a structure with about 16 members within the first 3 months. And most of these people were young professionals. They were working in Tobago. As a matter of fact, one of the things that affected us within 1 year was the attrition, because people were leaving to go away and study. In some instances, people were thinking about advanced study, right? And some were going to do their professional studies. So within the first year, we had seen some diffusion
Right.
from the core group of people who they just had
Yes.
too much
But
talent and they couldn't remain in Tobago.
certainly would have been a challenge.
Yes.
So then how were you as an organization? And you're talking about in your first year, many organizations don't survive that kind of attrition rate that you speak of.
Yes.
How were you able to go beyond that and still maintain the momentum within the organization?
Well, it was just so happened we found a good vein of donor support. Caribbean Network for Integrated Rural Development, CNIRD. I had a colleague there, and he was able to arrange for us to have a grant of about $2,500, a little more than that, plenty money in those days,
Yes.
to help us push some of our initiatives, which were initiatives geared to increase the awareness of our good heritage that I have mentioned in all communities of Tobago, because we were island driven, not community, not one specific community focused. And we had stakeholder relationships with different NGOs, in particular the Association of Village Councils. I can't remember the person who was the big man there at the time, but I think a person we related to much was Mr. Cruikshank.
Yes.
But by July, we were started, and by September, because of Elton Keith's contacts, we were able to sign an agreement to have a project that could do things for the island and also give us resources, financial resources. I refer to the glass recycling project that Push started
Right.
with Carib Glass in September 1995. We signed an agreement with them in September 1995.
So before you get to the project, and that was one of your significant projects, but I want you to linger a little bit and tell me about managing your volunteer resource.
Okay.
Because many organizations are not able to maintain volunteers, and particularly I'm relating to our organizations of today, where the issue of volunteerism is dwindling quite a bit. How did that, was the organization able to maintain interest and keep its volunteers and get them focused on working in that developmental way?
All right. Now, indeed, because we were 3 months into our operation at the time, this project with Carib Glass was one of the cohesive elements for our operation.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, probably within 2 months of the signing of the agreement to handle 5,000 tons of cullet, that's the glass,
Yes.
going from Tobago back to Carib Glass. We had to invest in school programs. We had several secondary schools in Tobago and a couple communities taking bins.
Oh, right.
The bins had Push written on them,
Yes.
and people were looking out, what is this Push and what are they doing? And it is in that regard that we were able to form small networks that would look after making the collection of glass and so on, and we were able to have a more cohesive program of support with students in school. That is in particular the 5th and 6th formers, right? And then there was contributors, like I remember we had cullet or glass recycling bins in Crown Point. I think it may have been in the area of Cocoa Reef.
Right.
Or in that area just outside Cocoa Reef. And we had 1 or 2 persons who would basically look after that first in a volunteer capacity. So we started to realize that we needed more associates rather than members. So we took the position within a year or 2 that we weren't striving to make members, but to have partnership.
Oh, great.
And so a lot of the people who were given through the environmental project in particular were partners. When we went to UNDP, UNDP GEF program was established. They had never funded anybody in Tobago.
Right.
And they had only done one GEF funding, that's the Global Environment Facility, that they did in different parts of the world, but it was managed in Trinidad. And what happened right there is that we were able to get their input to pursue
Yes.
this glass recycling project as an environmental sustainability project that would touch all the parishes of Tobago.
Okay.
And we were awarded $50,000 to do so.
Oh, excellent. So this was a significant
Yes,
project for you.
Moving from $2,500
To
to $50,000
$50,000.
in the same year.
Yes.
Right. By November, we were beginning to receive resources, but the exercise was taxing
Okay.
because the Carib Glass expected that we would generate monies that we could put back into
the project.
into our project,
Yes.
into what we wanted to do for the communities. We were thinking in terms of youth development because that was one of our objectives. And the resources would be coming from the kind of contribution that was given to us
Yes.
once we sent the cullet back to, or the glass back to the property. You know, they pay 6 cents or 7 cents or whatever.
Right.
And then you have as a depot handler, you got a higher rate. So they gave us a higher rate. But all of that was very taxing. All of it was very, very taxing. So in these circumstances, we couldn't sustain. And so I just wanted to emphasize that the project, the mandate from Carib Glass was extremely difficult and rigorous and required full-time staff. We did not have the wherewithal to have full-time staff. We were still really a small NGO.
Yes.
And we therefore had to give up the project by early 1997 because we just couldn't operate. And some of the members who were still there felt too much of our time had been invested in the environmental recycling program.
Right.
And we weren't able to give sufficient attention to the youth development and the whole heritage preservation awareness. So we didn't have the resources to continue, and we returned some of the assets or the equipment that we obtained to the UNDP.
Okay.
And at that time, by 1997, Environment Tobago, a dedicated environmental NGO, had been established.
Come on the scene.
Yes.
Right.
They didn't go into the glass recycling project, but they were on the scene with a major initiative, a major focus on the environment preservation.
Okay, so this must have been a major milestone achievement for a young organization, having attracted that level of funding and been able to bring a project at least to implementation and have some kind of piloting of your project happening.
Yes.
So excellent achievement. But tell us, I want you to, I have in my hand here an excerpt from a newspaper in 2006 that highlights several initiatives, and I don't know if we can zoom in here to take a look at some of the members of the board of directors. Interesting photos, that we have here. I see our president up there. I think this is Mr. Elton, and some other familiar faces in the Tobago landscape. So I want you to, with this in mind, tell us about some of the other things that the Push Foundation went into. What were some of your successes and the initiatives that you would have embarked on? Okay,
so by 1998, it is important to say that we were doing a Mother of the Year and a Father of the Year program. And in that regard, we had, I remember Master Charles, who was doing a kitchen out of Calder Hall. She was awarded, and that got a lot of media coverage, she was awarded our citation for Mother of the Year. And Alston Shepherd in Roxborough in the same year was our Father of the Year awardee. And he was very involved as a coach. He was a cricket coach and football coach, I think. And so people saw another side to us. This is the recognition side. Nobody was doing anything like that we could recall. Looking at honoring persons for their contributions. We then had a little challenge in terms of, of course, I give it in chronological order. By 1999, we had a youth build initiative, which was our effort to find the creative skills of the people from all the communities. And we had a program that was funded by Carib Glass, as a matter of fact. The first one was funded by or sponsored by Carib Glass, where we had a showcase of creative talents speech band from different
Okay.
communities, the Tobago
Right,
things,
yes.
come in, and we were using the amphitheater at the
Oh yes, I remember. A lot
at
happened
library.
at the amphitheater.
Yes.
Yes.
So we called it Youth Build One, and we had two such programs, showcasing the different skills from people on stage.
Right.
And speech band was one of the strongest things because we already started to see that that was slipping. It wasn't so much an adult thing anymore. So we had the speech band, we had the jig, the dancing, and so
Yes.
on. We showcased those skills to ensure that they were still inculcated in young people and they were
Right.
not going away from our people.
So it has always been about transferring the heritage.
Yes,
Making people aware
Yes.
of the significance of
Yes.
and the connectedness of us to our heritage.
and seeing where sustainable initiatives could come from
Right.
them, and people could pursue them in their own communities.
Okay,
right?
excellent. So we had the Youth Build program. Any others that you want to make mention
All
of?
right. So when we became incorporated in the year 2001,
Yes.
by this time, I sat down because Elton Keith was no longer involved. As a matter of fact, by that time he had passed away, right? And so I looked at the persons who were eager to continue along a path where we were deepening our role as a sensitization and project-driven organization
Yes.
to do the same things that we were referring to improve the general culture and societal development for Tobago.
Right. I see one mentioned here, which I myself was not aware of that the Push Foundation did. And we're talking about the Active Living Awareness Campaign.
Right.
Tell me about that.
Active Living campaign was a program that started while we had the Youth Build initiative going. The Youth Build initiative moved from a showcase to a 5-year program where we had 450 youths come through a
that
program
many?
for 9 months to learn, to do service learning,
Right.
the essence of volunteerism, and be able to go through character development at the same time while being assigned to projects to do volunteering work. It therefore is important for me to say that Youth Build 2002 to 2007 really defined Push as an organization.
Right.
People united to save our heritage was now operating in a partnership with the Division of Culture,
Yes.
Community Development and Culture. At the time, Mr. Mackenzie was the secretary. And the Livewire, who made Push play a major role in this kind of PPP arrangement, was Ms. Gloria Carrington.
Gloria Carrington. I remember.
She had known about the earlier work I had done with national service back in the 1990s, in an earlier life, before I even went to SPDC. And she sought my input to be able to craft a program particularly geared to Windward youth,
Yes.
whom she felt were tremendously disadvantaged. So I did a baseline assessment of what was going on. We looked for resources and we looked for a place that could be one to operate as a nerve center for the Youth Build program.
Yes.
A national service type program, but we call it a community service program because it was for Tobago alone.
Yes.
And the community service program, I must make this clear, was indigenous.
Right.
It was not be pursued in Trinidad.
That's right.
Catering to the 17 to 25 age group. There were only 2 other programs that basically catered to people at that time, YTEP and Civilian Conservation Corps, right? CCC.
Yes.
But we were homegrown.
Right.
And we found favor in terms of the kind of resources that the Division of Community Development put forward for us to operate the program. So they funded it, they were the major funders of the program, and we were executing it with our team. We hired staff to do it. And altogether we ran this program for 450 people with 6 persons at maximum number of staff at any time.
Excellent. So this is one of the signature projects of the Push Foundation.
And so the whole question of active living was another program we developed about the effort to make people be more conscious of the need for exercise. Trinidad and Tobago in particular.
Yes.
The program was actually called the Physical Physical Advancement, Recreational and Awareness Program, PARAP.
Yeah, PARAP.
I had looked at a model in New Zealand of how they were able to tell you what percentage of the population was healthy or fit.
Yes.
And so, because we had access to some of the youths who were doing volunteering work in Youth Build, we were able to undertake, particularly in Tobago, we were very partial to doing what at that point in time, questionnaires that people would fill out about their ability to, and the actions they took to remain healthy,
right.
and to therefore fight off non-communicable diseases.
Right.
As a matter of fact,
you know, it's interesting, and let me stick this question in here. It's interesting that even as you describe these programs, I can't help but want to ask you, do you see any relevance of that now, given the same issues that we seem to be facing in the Tobago space? Do you see any relevance of those programs from then to now?
Well, it's very good that you asked that question, because even though our Active Living initiative was operating for only about 2 years, we noticed the decision made by the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education to reduce the sucrose content in schools.
Right.
And in the surveys that we are doing and the results we put forward, we found that.
Yes.
We found obesity to be a big problem.
Right.
In our sample, which would have been over 250 people would have been sampled. At another stage of the program, it caused us to find, okay, what solutions could we come up with? Because PUSH would intervene where there are solutions we could make. And we actually funded 3 programs for exercise classes in the Windward.
Right.
And created one at our base, which was, we were based at the Bell Garden Great House.
Yes.
And we had one tutor come there and he would do sessions with people who would come from the community. And there were 1 or 2 others that we supported in little ways to ensure that people start exercising more. We had a tagline and we created a jingle that was given, that was played. 1 or 2 radio stations played it for us from time to time. We did some interviews on radio, tambourine, and I think 1 or 2 things on the television, Island Television Network. But Active Living was very much an initiative to help people come to terms with their lifestyle, the need for improving their lifestyle.
So all of this must have been a tremendous undertaking for an individual operating in a voluntary capacity. I know it would have taken a lot of time, energy, your efforts, and I'm sure even your own personal financial contribution. Sometimes that saps an individual, your mental strength, your ability to go on. What has kept you going through the years?
PUSH has become my 3rd child. At one point in time, it really was, I have 2 children.
Yes.
Akeisha, my daughter, and my son Adrian. And PUSH is my 25-year-old child right now.
Right.
Because the same way you would have detail and concern for your children, as an NGO, as the spearhead of this agency, I am extremely value focused. So I come to this program, to this set of project activities with vision.
Okay.
With integrity.
Well said.
With creativity.
So in the last 30 seconds of our filming, tell me, where is PUSH going now? Well,
PUSH is very much focused on the recognition initiative because we have not been able to attract resources. We are therefore going forward with something we decided out of the Tobago Icons project we established in 2001 to use visuals to bring our heroes into the faces and the homes of our communities. I have taken personal leadership of that, and that really and truly has involved the production of documentaries and magazine shows that have been showcasing the work of PUSH. And these include Against All Odds in 2012, Victor's Hour, a series I produced in 2012, which was on national TV, and in more recent times, Tobago Footprints on the Nation, which had been a project that I did in association with TTT to highlight Tobago legends and pioneers.
Excellent.
Yes.
Now this has been very encouraging, and I'm happy that we are here with you from the PUSH Foundation. And I want you to recount over the period and the experience of PUSH Foundation. Tell me if you have to identify the things that PUSH Foundation has left of significance that will be etched in the history of Tobago. What will those things be?
I like to put it this way. PUSH had been a trailblazer in the recycling initiative, 1996 to 97.
Right.
Glass recycling, we opened the eyes to our national community, and now, although there's not a comprehensive program of recycling being pursued by the authorities, the point about it is recycling is very germane to our population, particularly when people realize we have one landfill that is definitely overburdened.
Right.
And so in the circumstances, I thought that therefore has a continuing effect to project in the minds of people the value of recycling to save our landfill, because there is unlikely to be any
and it
effort.
certainly highlights the possibilities.
Yes.
When people come together, and for such an undertaking to be done by a non-governmental organization is indeed a significant thing etched in our history. What else?
The other point that is crucial is with regards to lasting effect. I would say our effort at recognition pertaining to the heroes, starting with Arthur N.R. Robinson. I must say that in 2001, when we did the Tobago Icons Project, we produced all these biographical sketches of these heroes, and we went around to different places in Tobago, the libraries, the port, one or two banks asked us to come, and we put these things up for display, mounted displays like you see we have here now. And when Mr. Robinson invited the PUSH executive as president of the nation to come and have an evening with him, to visit him at some point in time when he was in Tobago, we went there and we called for the airport to be named after N.R. Robinson. That was 2001.
Nice.
He was so moved, and it took 12 years for that to manifest. In similar vein, what has been lasting has been the fact that some people have taken our biographical extracts and they have prepared what you would call the nomination forms for the national awards. We did a couple of ourselves. We're very grateful for the work we did for Dr. Easton Mackenzie to get.
Nice.
As a matter of fact, she should have gotten a Trinity Cross.
Nice.
At that time, it was still Trinity Cross we were talking about. Carlos Sexy Baines, the golfer.
Yes.
We got him nominated, and that was the only nomination he received, and they gave him an award. And other people have been taking some of these sketches and helping to produce what you call nominations, submitted nominations for the national awards to be granted.
Nice.
So that has been good. And I must also say that the program of Youth Build as a service learning program has produced some outstanding stalwarts in our society.
Yeah. I was wondering how you didn't say that one first.
Because I know that would be the lasting effect.
Right, okay.
We invested in people, in youths, and the youths are shining today. In the nursing profession, in television,
Yes.
in sports. And as this series continues, we are going to have a couple of them appear on the set.
Excellent.
To speak about their experiences in our 9-month program, which eventually had to be shortened to 6 months.
Yes.
Right? Because they were able to grow in a service learning program.
Yes.
And their civic consciousness in the society cannot be, there cannot be any understatement.
Can't be challenged, can't be questioned. So you're talking about growing citizens.
Yes, that has been phenomenal. Most of these people in our program, back in that period, 2000 to 2007, most of them were disadvantaged youths.
Yeah.
Most of them did not succeed in their O-levels.
Yeah.
They came into the program with hope for an improvement in their lives and a turnaround and self-respect.
Yeah.
And we developed a life skills program and executed. I was one of the core persons in designing the lessons for the life skills program, and we had people execute them.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that to say that our life skills approach found its way even into that, a couple of those programs. I remember the program with adolescent mothers.
Yeah.
Our life skills program found its way into that.
Okay.
And that therefore has probably continued, because I think some of those initiatives are still running.
Okay.
Right? So those are some of the more memorable things that I believe have the longest impact.
Right.
But I must say, in closing, that PUSH has basically stayed the course of its initial mission to sensitize people to what they can achieve and preserve the heritage, continue to respect our elders, and find way to celebrate our legends, pioneers, trailblazers, and heroes. And therefore, by operating right here in Pioneers Gallery, we are still maintaining the presence to allow persons to come and still access, finally, what we can think is a permanent place to be able to interact with the legends and pioneers through our mounted displays.
Excellent work, Mr. Phillips, and it really has been refreshing hearing of the exploits and the experiences, the challenges, the gain, what you've been able to do, and largely from a voluntary perspective. And I think that is what is commendable about the PUSH Foundation, and the fact that you have sustainability in what we are seeing here. The education continues, preserving our heritage. It has been a pleasure talking with you on the Tobago Chronicles, and for our viewers, we've been chatting with Mr. Andre Phillips of the PUSH Foundation, People United to Save Our Heritage. What a wonderful and refreshing experience. Thank you, and continue to join us on our next episode.